Hey there, welcome back. I'm here to help you relax tonight. Before we slip into the shadows, like and subscribe to uncover more stories like this. Let me know in the comments where are you listening from and what time is it there. It really brings our community together. Now, dim the lights for that cozy vibe and stick around till the end. Let's dive into the unknown. Julian Ashford could not remember accepting the invitation. Yet here he stood before the weathered door of L'Atelier Oublié, the forgotten studio, watching November rain streak the grimy windows like tears down a corpse's face. The summons lay folded in his coat pocket, its elegant script rendered on what appeared to be torn easel paper, the edges stained with something that might have been burnt umber or dried blood. You are requested at a critique supper, November 13th, 8 o'clock, L'Atelier Oublié, Rue de la Santé. Your attendance is essential. Come prepared to face your work. No signature, no return address, only that faint smell of turpentine and decay that had clung to the paper since it arrived at his apartment 3 days ago. The Rue de la Santé wound through the 14th arrondissement like a scar, not far from the catacombs where millions of bones lay stacked in the darkness beneath Paris. The studio itself occupied the top floor of a building that seemed to lean away from the street, as if trying to escape its own reflection in the rain-slicked cobblestones. Julian had walked past this building 100 times during his years in Paris, never noticing it until tonight, when it seemed to be the only structure on the street that cast a shadow. He pushed open the door. It swung inward without resistance, revealing a narrow staircase that climbed into shadow. The walls were water-stained, decorated with peeling posters from exhibitions long past. Names he recognized, dates from before the war. One poster showed a young woman's face, her eyes following him as he ascended. He could not quite make out the name beneath the portrait, though it stirred something in his memory, like a stone dropped into a well whose bottom he could not hear. The climb seemed longer than it should have been. 5 flights, then 6, then 7, though the building had appeared to be only 4 stories from the street. His footsteps echoed in the stairwell, accompanied by a second set of footfalls that he told himself was merely the echo, though they seemed to fall just slightly out of rhythm with his own. At the top, another door stood ajar, golden light spilling through the gap. Julian paused, his hand on the doorframe. Through the opening, he could see a vast space draped in dust and shadow, lit by oil lamps that cast more darkness than illumination. Half-finished canvases leaned against the walls like sleeping sentinels. In the center of the room, a long table had been set with mismatched plates and wine-stained glasses, arranged around wheels of cheese and bottles of vin rouge that gleamed like garnets in the lamplight. He stepped inside. "Ah, Julian." A voice emerged from the shadows to his left. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't come." Julian turned to find a man of perhaps 40, with graying temples and paint-stained fingers. Something about the man's face was familiar, though Julian could not place where they might have met. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" The man smiled, though the expression held no warmth. "Oliver Wilson. We met at the Salon d'Automne. 5 years ago, or was it 6? Time has a way of blurring in this city." Other figures began to emerge from the studio's shadows. 9 men, each moving with the same hesitant quality Julian felt within himself, as if they were all sleepwalking through some half-remembered dream. They introduced themselves one by one, their names falling into the dusty air like stones into dark water. Ethan Moore, thin and nervous, constantly adjusting wire-rimmed spectacles that caught the lamplight in unsettling ways. Benjamin King, broad-shouldered and military in bearing despite his civilian clothes, though Julian noticed his hands trembled slightly when he reached for a wine glass. Henry Scott, elderly, leaning on a walking stick carved with symbols Julian almost recognized. Alexander Green, young and pale with the haunted look of someone who had seen too much. Wyatt Baker, whose jewelry proclaimed wealth his hollow eyes contradicted. Nolan Adams, perpetually fidgeting, unable to meet anyone's gaze directly. Adrian Nelson, whose cultured voice could not quite mask an edge of desperation. Isaac Hill, silent and watchful, standing slightly apart from the group as if he had known all along that this gathering would not end well. "Curious," Benjamin King said, his voice carrying the clipped precision of someone accustomed to giving orders. "I cannot recall exactly how I came to accept this invitation. It arrived, and it seemed imperative that I attend, yet I cannot remember making the conscious decision to come." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled artists. Julian found himself nodding, relieved he was not alone in his confusion. "The invitation said something about a critique supper," he ventured. "Does anyone know who our host is supposed to be?" Oliver Wilson walked to the table and lifted one of the wine bottles, examining its label in the lamplight. Chateau Margaux, 1919, an excellent vintage. Someone has gone to considerable expense. He paused, his expression darkening. "Or considerable memory. What do you mean by that?" Wyatt Baker demanded, his voice rising with barely suppressed panic. But Oliver did not answer. Instead, he set the bottle down carefully and moved to examine one of the canvases leaning against the far wall. Even from across the room, Julian could see the painting depicted a young woman, her features rendered with extraordinary skill, her eyes seeming to follow the viewer with an intensity that bordered on accusatory. "I know this place," Henry Scott said suddenly. His walking stick tapped against the floorboards as he moved toward the center of the room. L'Atelier Oublié, the forgotten studio. It was famous once, before the war. A young woman ran it, an American girl, if I remember correctly. A prodigy, she was going to revolutionize French painting. "What happened to her?" Nolan Adams asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer and feared it. Henry Scott's eyes grew distant. "She died. Suicide, they said. Threw herself into the Seine. They found her body 3 days later, downstream near the Pont Neuf. Her hands were—" He stopped abruptly, his face going pale. "Her hands were what?" Julian pressed, though something in him did not want to know. "Scarred," Henry finished quietly. "Badly scarred, as if they had been burned by acid." The silence that followed was broken only by the rain against the windows and the guttering of the oil lamps. Then Alexander Green spoke, his young voice trembling. "I remember now. There was a scandal. Something about stolen commissions. Her work was sabotaged just before a major exhibition at the Galerie Durand-Ruel. Someone had poured acid on her canvases, destroyed months of work. It ruined her reputation. The patrons abandoned her. She lost everything." "That was 15 years ago," Oliver Wilson said. "What does it have to do with us?" No one answered, but Julian felt the weight of unspoken knowledge pressing down on the room like a physical force. He moved to the table, drawn by a compulsion he could not name, and found himself pulling out a chair. The others followed suit, each man taking a seat as if responding to some silent summons. 10 places had been set, but they were only 9. The 10th chair at the head of the table remained empty. As if in response to their seating themselves, food began to appear on the plates before them, not served by any visible hand, but simply materializing as they watched. Cheese and bread, figs and walnuts, pâté rich and dark. Wine filled their glasses, though no one had lifted the bottles. "This is impossible," Ethan Moore whispered, pushing his spectacles up his nose with shaking fingers. "Is it?" Isaac Hill asked. He had been silent until now, his dark eyes moving from face to face around the table. Or have we simply chosen to forget what we came here to remember? Wyatt Baker reached for his wine glass and drank deeply, as if trying to drown whatever memory was clawing its way to the surface of his consciousness. I don't understand what you're implying. Don't you? Isaac's voice was soft, but it carried an accusation that made the others flinch. Think back. 15 years ago, the American girl with the extraordinary talent, the commissions that should have been hers, the exhibition that would have made her famous. Julian felt his hands begin to tremble. Fragments of memory were surfacing now, like bodies rising from deep water. A studio much like this one, but filled with light and laughter. A young woman showing them her work, her voice bright with hope and ambition. Her name had been Vivian, Henry Scott said, and the name hung in the air like an indictment. Vivian St. Clair. The lamps flickered violently, and for a moment Julian could have sworn he saw a figure standing in the shadows beyond their circle of light. A young woman with dark hair and paint-stained hands, watching them with eyes that held all the patience of the dead. Then the moment passed, and there was only darkness and the sound of rain. "We knew her," Oliver Wilson said slowly, as if each word was being dragged from some deep, hidden place. "We all knew her. We studied together at the Académie Julian. She was the best of us, the most talented, the most likely to succeed. She was going to get the Durand-Ruel commission," Alexander Green added, his voice barely audible. "The series of paintings for their new gallery. It was worth 10,000 francs, enough to establish her career permanently. They had already announced her as the artist. Until someone convinced them otherwise," Adrian Nelson said. He had been sitting rigidly in his chair, but now he slumped forward, his head in his hands. "God help us. We convinced them otherwise." The food on their plates should have been appetizing, but Julian found his stomach churning as the memories continued to return. They had been jealous, he remembered now. Jealous of Vivian's talent, of the way the instructors praised her work, of the commissions that came to her while they struggled to sell even their smallest pieces. She had been generous with her success, offering to help them, to introduce them to her patrons, but her generosity had only made their envy burn brighter. It had started as a joke, hadn't it? Or had they told themselves that to make it easier to bear? Someone had suggested that Vivian's success was due to factors other than talent, that she was using her American charm, her feminine wiles, that the patrons and critics were blinded by her beauty rather than moved by her art. The lie had spread through their circle like a disease, whispered in cafes and studios, until even those who had never met Vivian began to believe it. Then had come the acid. Julian looked down at his hands and saw them as they had been 15 years ago, young and steady, holding the bottle they had stolen from the chemistry laboratory at the Sorbonne. He had not poured it himself. That distinction belonged to another. But he had been there, he had watched. He had done nothing to stop it. They had waited until Vivian was away from the studio, then let themselves in with a key Oliver had stolen. Her paintings for the Durand-Ruel commission had been arranged on easels, ready for the gallery owner's final inspection. Months of work, her finest pieces. Studies of Parisian life rendered with a skill and sensitivity that transcended mere technical brilliance. They had been alive, those paintings, windows into souls. One by one, they had poured the acid across the canvases. The paint had bubbled and blistered, colors bleeding together in obscene swirls as the fabric beneath dissolved. Julian could still remember the smell, sharp and chemical, and beneath it something sweeter, like burning flowers. Vivian had returned while they were still there. Julian would never forget the sound she made when she saw what they had done. Not a scream, not quite. Something more terrible than that. A keening wail that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her throat, as if her soul itself was tearing. She had tried to save the paintings, plunging her bare hands into the acid-soaked canvas, trying to scrape away the damage. By the time they pulled her away, her hands were burning, the skin blistering and peeling. She had looked at each of them in turn, her eyes filled with such betrayal, such incomprehension that Julian had wanted to die right there. They had fled, left her there with her ruined work and her ruined hands. The next day, they had gone to the Durand-Ruel gallery and told the owner that Vivian was unreliable, that she had destroyed her own work in a fit of madness, that she was unstable and should not be trusted with such an important commission. The gallery owner, faced with damaged goods and disturbing rumors, had given the commission to Oliver Wilson instead. The exhibition had made Oliver's career. The 10,000 francs had been divided among the conspirators. They had used Vivian's tragedy as a stepping stone to their own success. 3 weeks later, Vivian St. Clair had been pulled from the Seine. "We killed her," Wyatt Baker said, his voice flat. "We destroyed her work, ruined her reputation, stole her commissions, and drove her to suicide, and we profited from it." Around the table, 9 men sat in silence, each lost in the weight of memory and guilt. The food before them might as well have been ashes. The wine in their glasses looked like blood in the lamplight. It was Nolan Adams who broke first. He stood suddenly, his chair scraping against the floorboards. "I have to leave. I can't stay here." But when he tried to walk toward the door, he found his legs would not obey him. He stumbled, caught himself on the edge of the table, then slowly, inexorably, sank back into his chair as if pulled by invisible hands. "We can't leave," Isaac Hill said. There was no surprise in his voice, as if he had expected this. "Not until we faced what we came here to face." "This is madness," Ethan Moore said, but his protest lacked conviction. He reached up to adjust his spectacles and froze, staring at his own hands. "Wait, my hands. They're younger than they should be." Julian looked down at his own hands and felt his heart stutter. Ethan was right. The age spots were gone. The arthritis that had plagued his fingers for the past 5 years had vanished. These were the hands of a man of 30, not 45. "Look at the paintings," Henry Scott said, his voice hollow. He was pointing at the canvases that lined the walls, and Julian realized with creeping horror that they were changing. No, not changing, completing themselves. The half-finished works were filling in, colors appearing stroke by stroke, as if applied by invisible brushes, and each painting depicted the same subject, Vivian St. Clair. Her face rendered in a dozen different styles, from realism to impressionism to something that bordered on expressionist nightmare. In every painting, her eyes fixed on the viewer with the same terrible knowledge, the same patient judgment. "How long?" Adrian Nelson asked. "How long have we been dead?" The question hung in the air like smoke. No one wanted to answer it, but the truth was becoming undeniable. Julian tried to remember the journey to the studio. Had he taken the metro? Walked? He could not recall. Could not remember leaving his apartment or eating breakfast that morning, or anything concrete from the past day or week or... "I remember," Benjamin King said slowly. "I remember dying. It was 10 years ago, a heart attack in my studio. I was working on a commission, and the pain started in my chest, and I couldn't breathe, and then..." He looked around the table with growing horror. "But if I died 10 years ago, how can I be here?" "I died 8 years ago," Oliver Wilson said. Pneumonia. I remember the hospital, the fever, the nurses. I remember the priest giving me last rites. One by one, they began to remember. Henry Scott, a fall down the stairs of his apartment building. Wyatt Baker, a stroke that left him dead before he hit the floor. Nolan Adams, an overdose of sleeping pills that might have been suicide. Alexander Green, killed in a car accident on the road to Versailles. Adrian Nelson, a brain aneurysm that struck him down in the middle of a gallery opening. Ethan Moore, cirrhosis of the liver. The wine he loved finally claiming its due. Isaac Hill, cancer that had eaten him away over 2 slow years. And Julian himself. Julian, who now remembered the cold water of the Seine closing over his head, remembered choosing to follow Vivian into those dark waters, unable to bear the weight of guilt any longer. He had not jumped from a bridge as Vivian had. He had simply walked into the river one autumn evening 5 years ago and kept walking until the water was over his head. "We're dead," Wyatt Baker whispered. "We're all dead, but then what is this? What are we?" As if in answer, the 10th chair at the head of the table scraped back. No one sat in it, but they could all see the indentation in the cushion, as if someone invisible had just taken their seat. Wine poured itself into the empty glass. A piece of cheese appeared on the plate, broke apart, though no hand touched it. "Welcome," a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere, soft and feminine and terribly sad. "Welcome to l'Atelier Oublié. Welcome to the critique you never gave me in life." The air in front of the empty chair began to shimmer and coalesce. Slowly, like paint taking shape on canvas, a figure formed. Vivian St. Clair, as she had been at 22, before they destroyed her. Her dark hair was pulled back from her face, revealing features of striking beauty marred only by the sadness in her eyes. She wore the same paint-stained smock Julian remembered, and her hands, resting on the table before her, were whole and unscarred. "Vivian," Oliver Wilson breathed, "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Are you?" Vivian's voice was gentle, but beneath the gentleness lay something implacable. "Or are you simply sorry you were caught?" The food before them had changed. What had been cheese and bread was now paint, thick and viscous, oozing across the plates in colors that hurt to look at. The wine in their glasses had become turpentine, its chemical smell filling the air. "Every year," Vivian said, "on the anniversary of my death, you are summoned here. Every year you relive this evening. Every year you remember what you did to me. Every year you pay a price." Julian felt his throat constricting. "A price? What price?" Vivian smiled, and it was the saddest thing Julian had ever seen. "The price of art, Julian, the price of what you stole from me. One by one, you will fade. One by one, you will be erased, just as you erased my work. And unlike you, I will remember. I will bear witness to your vanishing. Someone must remember what you did." As she spoke, Nolan Adams began to gasp, clutching at his throat. His face reddened, then purpled, as if invisible hands were strangling him. He clawed at his collar, his eyes bulging with terror and desperation. The others half rose from their seats, but found themselves unable to reach him, unable to help. "Nolan was always the weakest," Vivian said conversationally. "He cried after you destroyed my paintings, but he still took his share of the money, didn't he? He still profited from my ruin." Nolan's struggles grew weaker. His movements became less coordinated, more desperate, until finally he slumped forward onto the table. But instead of lying still, his body began to fade. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, like watercolor running in rain. Within moments, both Nolan and his chair had vanished entirely, leaving only 8 diners around a table set for 10. "Stop this," Ethan Moore pleaded. "Please, Vivian, we're sorry. We've paid for what we did. We all died badly. Isn't that enough?" "Enough?" Vivian's voice hardened. "I lost everything, Ethan. My career, my work, my future, my life. I was 22 years old. I should have had 50 more years to paint, to create, to live. You took that from me. You took it for money and advancement. You destroyed a lifetime of art for 10,000 francs." She gestured, and the paintings around the room began to change again. Now they showed not Vivian's face, but scenes from her destroyed works. The paintings that should have hung in the Durand Ruel gallery, reconstructed from memory and longing. A street scene in Montmartre, rain-slicked cobblestones reflecting gaslight. A portrait of an old flower seller at Les Halles, her weathered face full of dignity and sorrow. A study of the Seine at dawn, mist rising from the water like souls ascending. They were magnificent, even in their spectral form. Even rendered by grief and memory rather than paint and canvas, they transcended anything the conspirators had ever created. Julian felt tears streaming down his face as he looked at them, understanding fully for the first time what they had destroyed. "I could have been great," Vivian said softly. "Not successful, not famous. Great. My work could have touched people, could have shown them something true about the world. But you took that possibility away, and for what? So Oliver could have a moderately successful career, painting portraits of rich men who didn't deserve to be remembered. So Benjamin could illustrate war memorials that glorified violence. So the rest of you could scrape by selling tourist pictures of the Eiffel Tower." Benjamin King suddenly stood, his military bearing crumbling. "I tried to make amends," he said desperately. "After you died, I tried to tell the truth. I went to the newspapers, to the gallery owners. I tried to restore your reputation." "Did you?" Vivian asked. "Or did you wait until it was convenient? Until enough time had passed that you wouldn't face real consequences? You spoke up only when you were dying, Benjamin. Only when you had nothing left to lose. That's not conscience, that's cowardice." Benjamin opened his mouth to protest, but no sound came out. His face contorted with pain, and he clutched at his chest. Julian recognized the gesture, a heart attack, the same death Benjamin had already died, but this time there would be no hospital, no possibility of survival. Benjamin's body convulsed once, twice, then began to fade just as Nolan's had. Within moments, he was gone. 7 remained. "You can't do this," Wyatt Baker said, though his voice held no conviction. "We're already dead. You can't kill us again." "Can't I?" Vivian asked. "You're here, aren't you? You exist in this moment, in this place, and I can take that existence away. I can erase you as thoroughly as you erased my paintings. Perhaps more so, because no one will mourn your passing. No one will remember what promise you might have held." The oil lamps began to burn lower, their light dimming as if starved of oxygen. The studio seemed to be growing larger, the walls receding into shadow, the floor beneath their feet becoming less solid. Julian had the vertiginous sensation of standing on the edge of a great abyss, held back from the fall only by the thin membrane of Vivian's will. Ethan Moore suddenly stood and moved toward one of the paintings on the wall. "I remember this one," he said, his voice breaking. "The flower seller. You showed it to us at the Académie. I told you it was sentimental. I mocked it in front of the other students. But the truth was I was jealous. I could see the humanity in it, the compassion. I could paint technique, but I could never paint feeling the way you did." He reached out to touch the canvas, and his hand passed through it as if through smoke. He turned back to the table, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry. I know it means nothing now, but I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved the world." Vivian watched him with those sad, patient eyes. "Your sorrow is real, Ethan. I can see that. But it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't restore what was lost. Remorse is a luxury of the living. The dead require justice." Ethan nodded slowly, as if he had expected this. He returned to his seat and lifted his wine glass, though it now contained only turpentine. "Then give me justice," he said, and drank. The effect was immediate. His body stiffened, his face going gray as the poison worked through his system. He did not fight it. He simply sat there, holding the glass, until his hand began to fade, and the glass fell through his vanishing fingers to shatter on the floor. And then Ethan Moore was gone, leaving only the broken glass as evidence he had ever existed. 6 now. 6 conspirators at a table that seemed to be floating in an endless void. Alexander Green was weeping openly. "I was 23 years old," he said. "Just 23. I didn't understand what we were doing. I thought it was just a prank, a way to level the playing field." "And when you saw the acid eating through my paintings?" Vivian asked. "When you saw my hands burning, when you heard me screaming, did you still think it was just a prank?" Alexander had no answer. He simply sat there, tears streaming down his young face until his body began to tremble. It was a seizure, Julian realized. The same seizure that would later kill Alexander in a car accident, distracted at the wheel by a vision of Vivian's destroyed paintings. Alexander's body convulsed, then faded, leaving 5. "How many times?" Henry Scott asked. His voice was calm, almost curious. "How many times have we endured this?" "Every year since my death," Vivian replied. 15 times now. Some of you have lasted longer than others. Wyatt usually goes first. He was always the most afraid. Ethan sometimes makes it to the end, but not tonight. And we never remember until we're here, Henry said, understanding. We live our deaths over and over, and between each death we're summoned here to remember what we did to you. Yes, Vivian said. You wanted to erase me, to make it as if I had never existed, so I do the same to you. Every year you are erased, and every year you must experience that erasure fully, knowing what's happening, unable to stop it. Wyatt Baker let out a strangled sound and began clawing at his neck. Not choking, Julian realized, but something worse. A stroke, the same stroke that had killed him in life. He could see the moment awareness left Wyatt's eyes, the moment his body realized it was dead. Then Wyatt began to fade, and there were 4. Adrian Nelson spoke for the first time in what seemed like hours. I went to your grave, he said quietly. Every year on the anniversary of your death, I would bring flowers. White roses, they were your favorite. I know, Vivian said. I watched you. Did you? Adrian looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Did that mean anything? Did it count for anything? Vivian was silent for a long moment. It meant you remembered, she said finally. It meant you carried the guilt, but it didn't change what you did. And guilt without amends is just another form of selfishness. You made yourself suffer to feel better, not to help me. Adrian's face crumpled. What could I have done? You were already dead. You could have told the truth, Vivian said. Not when you were dying, like Benjamin. Not in private, like Henry. Publicly. You could have spent your career elevating my memory instead of profiting from my absence. You could have donated your share of that blood money to young artists who needed help. You could have done 1,000 things. Instead, you brought flowers once a year and told yourself you were a good person. Adrian's head drooped forward onto his chest. When he looked up again, blood was trickling from his nose. An aneurysm, the same one that had killed him in a gallery full of people who thought they were watching him have a spiritual experience with the art. He faded slowly, his expression one of infinite sadness. 3 now. Julian, Oliver, and Henry. Henry Scott leaned forward, his walking stick clattering to the floor. "I'm 92 years old," he said. "Or I was when I died. I've lived a long life, Vivian, a successful life. I became famous, my paintings hang in museums. Art students study my technique, but I'll tell you a secret." He paused, and in the silence, Julian could hear the rain still falling outside, a sound from a world they could no longer reach. "Every painting I made after that night," Henry continued, "every single one I painted for you, trying to capture what you would have created if you'd lived, trying to fill the void we created, and every painting fell short. Because I didn't have your gift, Vivian. None of us did. That's why we destroyed you." Vivian's expression softened slightly. "I know, Henry. I've watched your work. I've seen you struggling to paint with my vision. But you can't create with someone else's eyes. You can only create with your own. And your eyes were blinded by envy." Henry nodded slowly. Yes, they were." He looked down at his hands, ancient and trembling. "I'm tired, Vivian. I've been tired for so long, carrying this guilt for 70 years. Even in death, I can't put it down." "Then don't," Vivian said gently. "Carry it a while longer. Bear witness to what we did, what you all did. Remember, not just me, but what could have been. The paintings I never made, the students I never taught, the world I never changed. Hold all of that in your heart, and perhaps someday, when even ghosts can die, you'll find peace." Henry smiled, and it was the saddest, most beautiful thing Julian had ever seen. "Thank you," he said. Then he closed his eyes and his body began to fade. Not struggling, not fighting, simply letting go. And then he was gone, and there were 2. Oliver Wilson sat across from Julian, separated by the remains of their impossible feast. The 2 men looked at each other, and in Oliver's eyes Julian saw the same knowledge he carried in his own heart. They were the worst of the conspirators, the 2 who had profited most directly from Vivian's destruction. "It was my idea," Oliver said. "The acid, the lie to the gallery owner, all of it. The rest of them went along, but I orchestrated it. And I helped," Julian added. "I could have stopped you, should have stopped you. Instead, I held the door open while you destroyed her work. We did it because we weren't good enough," Oliver said. "We knew it even then. We could see the genius in her work, and it terrified us because we knew we'd never achieve it ourselves. So, we destroyed it, rather than be reminded of our own mediocrity." Vivian stood from her chair and moved around the table. She was more substantial now, more real than any of them. Julian could see the individual brush strokes in her smock, the paint under her fingernails, the freckles on her nose that he had forgotten until this moment. "You understand," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Julian and Oliver said in unison. "Good," Vivian said, "because understanding is part of the punishment. You must know not just what you did, but why. You must see yourselves clearly, without the lies and justifications you used in life. You must face what you truly were." Oliver suddenly gasped and clutched at his chest. Pneumonia, the same disease that had killed him 8 years ago. Julian could hear the fluid filling Oliver's lungs, drowning him from within. Oliver's eyes widened with terror, and he reached across the table toward Julian, as if Julian could save him. But Julian could not move, could only watch as Oliver fought for breath that would not come. And then Oliver began to fade, his hand still outstretched, until there was nothing left but empty air. Julian sat alone at the table. Alone except for Vivian, who had returned to her seat at the head. The 10th chair, the empty chair, the chair of judgment. "Just me now," Julian said. "Just you," Vivian agreed. The last witness to what happened that night, the last to remember everything. Julian looked around the studio. The paintings on the walls were complete now. Perfect reconstructions of Vivian's lost work. He could see her entire career spread before him. Not just the paintings she had made, but the paintings she should have made. Her artistic evolution laid out across 15 years that never happened. Her masterpieces that existed only in the realm of what might have been. "They're beautiful," he whispered. "God, they're so beautiful. You would have changed everything, the whole direction of modern art. I can see it now. Your influence would have shaped a generation." "Perhaps," Vivian said. "Or perhaps I would have failed. Perhaps my later work would have been disappointing. Perhaps I would have lost my gift, or my vision, or my courage. We'll never know, Julian. That's the cruelest thing you took from me. Not just what I was, but what I could have become. You stole my potential, my possibility." Julian felt his throat constricting, but not from physical cause. This was grief, pure and overwhelming, for a future that never happened, for all the art that would never be created, all the beauty that would never be seen, all the meaning that would never be made. "I loved you," he said suddenly. The words surprised him, but as soon as he spoke them, he knew they were true. "I was in love with you. That's why I destroyed you. Because I couldn't have you, couldn't be you, couldn't even stand beside you as an equal. So I tore you down." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "I know," she said softly. "I always knew, and that makes it worse somehow. Because love should create, Julian. Love should build. But you turned your love into a weapon and used it to destroy what you claimed to cherish." "I'm sorry," Julian said, and the words felt impossibly inadequate. "I know it means nothing. I know it changes nothing. But I'm sorry, Vivian. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for what you lost. I'm sorry for being too weak, too envious, too small to be what I should have been." "Your apology is noted," Vivian said. "Your remorse is observed. Your guilt is acknowledged, and still, it changes nothing." Julian felt the familiar numbness spreading through his limbs, the cold of the Seine, the moment he had chosen to die rather than live with what he had done. The water closing over his head, filling his lungs, pulling him down into darkness. He had thought death would be an ending, a release from guilt. But there was no release. Only this, over and over, remembering and being erased. "Will it ever end?" he asked. "This cycle? This punishment?" Vivian stood and walked around the table to stand beside him. She reached out and touched his face, and her hand was solid, warm, real. "When you understand," she said. "When you truly understand not just what you did, but what art is, what creation is, what it means to destroy something beautiful, not for survival, not for protection, but simply because its existence makes you feel small." "I understand now," Julian said desperately. "Do you?" Vivian asked. "Or do you just want the pain to stop?" Julian opened his mouth to answer, but no words came because she was right. He didn't want understanding, he wanted escape. He wanted the cycle to end, not because he had learned what he needed to learn, but because he couldn't bear to continue. "Oh, Julian," Vivian said sadly, "you still have so far to go." The numbness was spreading faster now. Julian could feel himself beginning to fade, his body becoming translucent. But unlike the others, he could see himself disappearing, could watch his own erasure happening in real time. "One more thing," Vivian said. She gestured, and a canvas appeared on an easel beside the table. It was blank, pristine, waiting to be filled. "Before you go, before you forget again, before the cycle begins anew, paint something for me, Julian. Paint what you feel. Paint the truth." Julian looked down at his fading hands. They were barely visible now, more ghost than substance. But when Vivian placed a brush in his fingers, he could feel its weight, could feel the promise of paint and color and creation. He stood, his chair scraping back, and moved to the easel. The blank canvas seemed to glow in the dimming lamplight. His hands were almost completely transparent now, but he could still grip the brush, could still make marks on the white surface. He began to paint. Not Vivian, though her face haunted every stroke. Not the destroyed canvases, though their loss informed every color. Not the Seine, though its dark waters pulled at the edges of his composition. Instead, he painted what he felt, what he had been too afraid to acknowledge in life. He painted envy as a living thing, a creature of shadow and teeth that devoured beauty wherever it found it. He painted guilt as a weight, a physical substance pressing down on human forms until they crumbled into dust. He painted the moment of destruction, not literally, but emotionally, capturing the instant when creation turns to devastation, when love becomes hate, when fellowship becomes betrayal. And finally, impossibly, he painted regret. Not as sadness, but as a kind of terrible clarity. The moment when you see what you have done, truly see it, and understand that it can never be undone. The painting was grotesque and beautiful, honest and devastating. It was the best thing Julian had ever created, and he had only minutes to make it before he vanished completely. As he added the final strokes, his hands became so transparent they were barely visible. The brush fell through his fading fingers and clattered to the floor. He stepped back from the easel and saw what he had made. It was not enough, could never be enough, but it was something. A small act of creation in a long history of destruction, a moment of truth in a life built on lies. "Thank you," Vivian said. She was standing beside him, looking at the painting. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "Thank you for showing me what you really are." "A monster," Julian whispered. "No," Vivian said. "Human. Terribly, destructively, inevitably human. And that's the tragedy, Julian. Because humans create such beauty and destroy it with equal passion. You could have been great. You all could have. But you chose destruction instead, and now you pay the price of that choice, over and over, until you learn what it cost." Julian felt himself fading completely now. The studio was disappearing. Vivian was disappearing. Even the painting he had just created was fading into mist. But before he vanished entirely, before the cycle began again, he understood something. This was not punishment, it was education. They would return, all of them, summoned again to this place on the anniversary of Vivian's death. They would remember again what they had done. They would fade again, erased like paint scraped from canvas. And each time, they would understand a little more, feel a little deeper, see a little clearer, until finally, perhaps centuries from now, they would understand fully, would carry the weight of what they had done not as a burden but as knowledge, would become witnesses to their own crime, holding the truth of it without flinching, without seeking escape. And maybe then, when even ghosts could learn and grow and change, there would be peace. Maybe. The last thing Julian saw before he vanished completely was Vivian's face, sad and beautiful and infinitely patient, watching him fade with eyes that held all the sorrow of lost potential. Then darkness, then nothing. Then, after a moment that might have been a second or a century, light again, rain against windows, a door standing open, an invitation in his pocket, its elegant script rendered on torn easel paper. You are requested at a critique supper, November 13th, 8 o'clock, L'Atelier Oublié, Rue de la Santé. Your attendance is essential. Come prepared to face your work. Julian Ashford could not remember accepting the invitation. Yet here he stood before the weathered door of L'Atelier Oublié, watching November rain streak the grimy windows like tears down a corpse's face. He pushed open the door and began to climb. Again. Here's the wrap for now, until we meet again. If this tale kept you on edge, like and share it with a friend who dares to listen, and subscribe for more eerie nights like this one. Thanks for unwinding with me. Sleep tight if you can.